Did you know you don't have to be a lawyer to participate in the Guardian Ad Litem program? For this episode of the Domino Effect, we learn about a different way you can advocate for children in the foster care system. You'll hear directly from staff and volunteers with the Legal Aid Society about how meaningful it is to help make a difference in the life of a child who needs it. This is the Domino Effect, where we discuss the intersection of our community's top social issues with legal issues impacting us all. I'm your host, Jessica Thomas. It's no secret that the foster care system has some flaws. To be fair, it's a complex system to navigate when dealing with issues involving children and families. Kamia Taylor, the Volunteer Advocate for Children Coordinator at Legal Aid, is here to help us understand how we can support children in finding safe and happy homes. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, a Volunteer Advocate Coordinator.
Yes.
Tell our viewers, what is that?
Okay, so a volunteer advocate for children is a volunteer through the Guardian Ad Litem program with the Legal Aid Society. And so they are just lay volunteers that we pull from the community to help us with dependency cases.
And when we say dependency, sometimes that's a word you and I know, but the community may not understand. What do we mean when we talk about dependency?
So when we say dependency, that is where a child has been abused, abandoned, or neglected in some capacity and has been sheltered, and now we have a case open, and that case is known as dependency.
Got it. And so as a volunteer advocate coordinator, are you all lawyers?
So we do have a team of attorneys within the GAL program, but we are also supported by support staff and our volunteers.
And the volunteers themselves, what kind of requirements are there?
So very simple. So volunteers are required to be at least 18 years of age, be local to the area, Orange County and surrounding areas we accept as well, and be able to pass a level 2 background check. That's all you have to come with. Everything else we will equip you with.
What type of commitment is there to be a volunteer advocate coordinator?
So we pride ourselves on being as flexible as possible because our volunteers are students, they are retirees, they are legal professionals as well as professionals in other fields as well. So we are a very flexible program. The commitment is based on how many cases you have assigned. So for every case, we ask that you complete 1 visit per month at a minimum. If you want to do more, that's great. And that commitment typically depends on how long you are visiting with the child. So again, it's about 1 visit per month. And then you do have the option to attend hearings if you would like to, as well as staffings. But as far as the requirement, you are required to visit your child or children, depending on your case circumstances, about once per month.
Now, when you say visit with the children, again, think our viewers have no idea of the dependency system, how that works. Why are these backs visiting children? What is the course? Kind of give a little background and tell us what their role is in the case and kind of what a case looks like.
Okay, so we'll take it back just a little bit. So the Guardian Ad Litem program is court appointed to advocate for the manifest best interest of children with dependency cases, otherwise known as foster youth. And so we have thousands, unfortunately, of foster youth within Orange County. So a way to combat those numbers is we use our volunteers is to assist us with that advocacy. So volunteers are assigned based on need. So whether it's one of our GL attorneys or a pro bono attorney, they'll say, hey, Kamia, we can really use an extra pair of hands and eyes to visit this particular child. So by the time a volunteer is brought on board, the child has already been sheltered or removed from their home, and they are now living with a relative, a group home, so on and so forth. And so the volunteer assigned is tasked with meeting the child where they are, particularly in person, whether it is at home, at school, extracurricular. We just want to be able to lay eyes on that child. And so that visit consists of meeting with that child and just seeing how they are doing, how we can help, and relaying pertinent information back to our team of GL attorneys that are advocating on behalf of that child.
You were mentioning that they're able to go and visit with these children at extracurricular activities at their home. Can you give us a kind of idea of that commitment level? Are they driving for hours to meet the children? Are there places that they can have the parent meet the child, like at Family Ties or something like that? How does that work?
So that is a very good question. So all of the cases that a volunteer is assigned to will be local to Orange County. We do not ask a volunteer to be assigned to a case where the child is not local for that reason. We don't want to put any strain on our volunteers because they are lending their precious time. So we do ensure that any case a volunteer is assigned to, that it will be local to Orange County specifically. And so when it comes to the visits, it kind of changes case by case. So the volunteer can visit the child at their temporary home where they're living with a guardian, whether it be grandma, a family friend, or an approved foster parent. But particularly, we just ask our volunteers to meet in any public place. So it cannot be a place that is personal to you, for example. So it cannot be the volunteer's home, the volunteer's job, but any local place where you can have some privacy, because we are dealing with open cases. So it cannot be open to public ears to hear, but any place where you can be private and the comfortable as well as your caregiver is comfortable meeting the volunteer is sufficient.
Now, when we talk about these volunteer advocate coordinators, let's say I'm watching this, I want to get involved. Who do I reach out to? Do I call you? Do I show up at a courthouse? What do I do?
That's a very good question. I am your go-to girl. So you can find us on the Legal Aid website as well. And you can also reach out to us on social media platforms. As the volunteer coordinator, I am all things you need to know about the VAC program. So I will give you the requirements. I will also let you know what are your next steps, and I will hold your hand along the way. Feel free to also stop by our office downtown on Robinson Street as well. We'll take you any way that is convenient for you.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Now, were you a VAC?
I was not a VAC.
Okay.
So after receiving my JD degree from Barry University School of Law, I knew I wanted to do something as it pertains to children. Very quickly throughout law school, I realized this is my passion, this is my calling, but I don't want to do it in the courtroom. So I was doing some research. I stumbled upon Legal Aid, and I fell in love with what the program already was. And so I reached out to the persons that were there. I got involved, and that is how I became the coordinator.
Wow. Now, when you think about a volunteer advocate coordinator, I often think, because I've served as a guardian ad litem as well for the last 13 years, I think of them as like a right hand, someone who's helping the GAL. Are they, when you talk about them going to court, do they have to be worried when we talk about a courtroom? Do they have to consider or be prepared to potentially talk in court with that guardian ad litem?
So yes and no. And so we do tell our volunteers that attending court is always optional, but we do encourage it so that you can stay in the know and see what the full experience is becoming a VAC through the guardian ad litem program. So we will never put you on the spot. We're not going to just randomly call you to the stand. And so in addition to having contact with me, the volunteer also has contact with the GAL staff attorneys as well as the pro bono attorneys on the case. So they will talk to you beforehand. You can give them a heads up that you will be attending court, and that there is information that they would like for you to share. They will let you know beforehand. We will not spring anything on the volunteers.
Wonderful. Now, you mentioned that, hey, you all equip the VACs with everything that they need.
Yes.
Is there a training, and if so, how long is that? Is there a cost to becoming a volunteer?
That's a very good question. There is no cost. So again, we are so appreciative of volunteers who lend their time. We make it as easy as possible and as efficient as possible, and I truly mean we will meet you where you are. However much time you have to lend, we will take that. As far as the training, we do provide training. We do not expect any volunteers to come with any background skill sets or information as it relates to dependency law. So our training is in two parts. The first part will be an overview of dependency law. As you mentioned, that is not very well known to the community. So we'll give you a GAL one-on-one crash course about the ins and out of dependency, what our court hearings are, and so on and so forth. And then that second part is you will meet with me directly, and we'll talk a little bit more specifically about your role. So we'll go into a little bit more details about what those visits consist of, what those expectations can be. And in addition to the trainings, we also give our volunteers additional resources throughout their time as volunteers. So we do have a monthly newsletter that I create as well, just to give you some tips, some encouragement, and we also spotlight our volunteers. And so that is another resource that we use to make sure our volunteers have all the information they need to be successful.
Last question. So let's say that I'm an organization and I know you're familiar with, other groups that you can kind of do something for the day. You can do like a weekend. It sounds like this is the type of commitment that it's ongoing. But do you all have other volunteer opportunities through Legal Aid that there, of course, can be if there's a day and a done that they want to come and support Legal Aid, they can come and do
Yes,
that?
absolutely. So again, you can stop by our office or just give us a call. We have opportunities that meet anyone's needs and their interests at that time. And so with the VAC program specifically, it is fit for a longer term commitment, but we do have some short term case options as well. So if you do not have the time commitment to commit to a case and meet that child every single month, you can say, hey, Camilla, I have 2 months to meet with some kiddos and I want to get my hands involved. We can definitely set you up with some shorter term cases as well.
Wonderful. And you gave them, what's the website again?
It's legalaidocba.org.
Okay, and do you have a direct email they can use?
I do. So my email is going to be ktaylor, so that's KTAYLOR at legalaidocba.org.
And a phone number.
A phone number is 407-841-8310.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
today and everything that you do for our community.
Awesome. Thank you.
Let's take a quick moment to recognize our generous sponsors. We'll be back with more of the Domino Effect.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Disproportionate number of Floridians don't have access to the justice system. That's why funding Florida Legal Aid exists to bridge this gap. Their mission is to increase access for the underprivileged by funding legal services, developing innovative tools and programs, supporting legal aid providers and the courts. Because of their efforts, they've been able to help veterans facing homelessness, children in the foster care system, men and women who've survived domestic violence, and securing benefits for our elderly and disabled. Doing good for the greatest in need, because everyone deserves access to justice.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Now that we have a clear understanding of what a volunteer advocate for children is, let's look at how a VAC can bring some relief to legal aid staff and attorneys. Joining us now is Legal Aid's Guardian Ad Litem Director of Special Projects, Attorney Marie Preby. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
Good.
Tell us, what is a Guardian Ad Litem? We hear this GAL, GAL. What is that?
I think it's a hard concept for a lot of people, even within the child welfare system. So as a guardian ad litem, we are the voice of kids who are in foster care, who have been removed from their parents or their caregiver, legal caregiver, because of abuse, abandonment, or neglect. So statutorily, we are appointed by a judge when a child has been removed from their home and represent their best interests. Best interest is a funny concept. I feel like most people don't necessarily understand what that means, but it's essentially, what we think that the child may need, or where the best environment for the child, or are there any needs that the child needs, whether it be educational, mental health. We talk about placements, we talk about contact with parents or familiar adults with the child. So we are appointed again by the court to specifically represent the child, because in a dependency case there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of characters that play a role in this process. Case managers, attorneys for the parents, the judge, and the list goes on. And so sometimes when we're addressing the needs of the adult in the case, because we're dealing with families in crisis, the needs of the kids get lost, and that's where we come in.
That sounds like a lot, Marie. So tell me, let's get some logistics. Legal aid, how many Marie Previes are there? How many GAL attorneys?
Right, so in our office at the Legal Aid Society, specifically in the Guardian Ad Litem program, we now have 11 attorneys.
Okay.
We have 8 case coordinators, and those case coordinators are our social workers. So they assist us in visiting those families, getting to know them, providing information to us so that we as the attorneys can advocate for the kids in court hearings. And we have, of course, support staff, but we have almost 1,100 kids in care. So the numbers don't add up.
Yeah. So how with 1,100, and I always try to say the number different because I know sometimes viewers, 1,100 children is a lot.
It
and that's
is.
just for Orange County.
That's correct.
And you said 11 of you.
Right.
I'm not a mathematician, Marie. Is that like 100 children per person?
Correct. And that number fluctuates. Sometimes it's higher. Most of the time it's higher. And so we are really juggling, these kids and the needs of those kids and being able to see them and properly advocate for them.
How can you do that? How can you possibly visit 100 children and see them, even with the support staff that you're mentioning? Is that where something like a VAC would come in?
Correct. And you have to remember too that in dependency, the attorneys that are in courts, there's 11 of us, we're always in court, right? We have every single case, Monday through Friday, we have hearings 9 to 5 o'clock. And so we're always in court. If we're having contact with children, it's outside of those hours. And so we use our social workers along with our VACs to help us reach out to those kids and make great connections with them and get that information that we so desperately need to make sure that again, that they're in the most ideal setting, that they have everything they need to succeed. And so those VACs play a crucial part in helping us really and truly meet their needs. And it also expands the network for those kids in care, right? It's another adult that they know that's in their corner.
Now, when we think about becoming a guardian ad litem, I know that we have talked to our viewers about how they can get involved as a VAC. What about pro bono guardian ad litems? What if somebody's watching this and they say, I want to help you with that 100 children, that's a huge number, 100 children for each of you. How can they get involved?
Right. So we do rely heavily on our pro bono attorneys, and we have a wonderful network of those attorneys here in Orange County. But to be involved as a guardian ad litem, they can certainly reach out to our office, whether it's me or just calling our general number and indicating that they have an interest in becoming a guardian ad litem, or GAL as we call them. So we will have an introduction with them, a meeting over the phone to kind of explain the process and understand what their background is and also how it will fit in with us as the guardians ad litem in court and representing those kids, and walk them through the process to ensure that they know what they're doing, that they're comfortable doing it.
Now, when we talk about the children in foster care, I really want people to see kind of the kind of system that we're working within. Can you tell them a little bit? You mentioned case plan, sheltering, all words that I'm sure that our viewership may not be familiar with.
Right.
Can you give us kind of just a high level idea of, you said a child is abused, abandoned or neglected. What's that look like in a very straight line for our viewer?
Sure. So when a child comes into care, there are certainly hearings that happen because we're taking away a child from a parent, and there are rights that a parent has to parent their child. And so there's a judicial process to ensure that we're not overstepping and removing kids for no reason, and to ensure that parents are heard, but again, as well as children. There are social workers that are involved, but those social workers, and we're not talking about our case coordinators, but outside of that in the child welfare system, they have someone that's assigned to them, the families have someone that's assigned to them that will connect them with services and funding and take care of educational issues. The problem is that those social workers are just grappling with a bunch of other things at any given time. They also have high caseloads. They suffer from compassion fatigue, as does anyone else, right, that works in the child welfare system. And so we come in there as the catch-all, those extra ears and eyes to again ensure that we're doing the best for these kids that are in care, that have faced, trauma that most of us haven't really experienced.
Now, when we talk about our viewers who want to get involved as a volunteer, as wanting to give you all some help and support, you said that they can reach out at the main number, but I want to give them a kind of idea of what those duties would look like. Is it a time commitment if I want to be a GAL? Is it like 1 month? Is it like 1 year? What kind of duty expectation is there?
That's a great question. So I always say, you know, we never know how long a dependency case is going to last. However, they can last, you know, at least a year, sometimes more than that, sometimes less, you know, depending on how quickly the parents, because again, we're meeting with families in crisis, right? So how do we get them through the crisis and reunify them as a family? So sometimes that takes 6 months, sometimes that takes a year, sometimes that takes 2+ years, depending on the situation. So it's a long-term commitment, certainly for a pro bono attorney, and those VACs can bridge the gap because we have pro bonos who have their private practices, their own personal life, a bunch of other things going on and commitments that they need to do, and of course they're volunteering their time with the Legal Aid Society. So the VACs will serve to bridge that gap and ensure that the kids are being seen and connect with the children on a different level. Their time might be a little bit different. They might have more of it. They might also have a different background than an attorney, right? So that they have a different perspective on how things look.
I love that. I think that, you know, the biggest misconception sometimes is people think that best interest means the same thing as what the child wants.
No, it does not.
And I just want to ask as a final question, kind of tell us, it's my understanding that that person who looks out for what the kid wants is an attorney ad litem. Is that correct?
Correct. So that's an express interest attorney, right? What the child says is essentially what that attorney is advocating for, whereas the guardian ad litem is saying, and we'll tell the court, right? That's part of our role and part of our duty. We have to tell the court what the child wants, but we also have to tell them what we think the child needs. And of course, everyone has a different opinion as to what the child needs, right? But ultimately, that decision is made by the judge as to what's in the best interest of the child, and we provide them with the information to make that decision.
Wonderful. Marie, thank you so much for your commitment to our community, for choosing this, you know, as an attorney, choosing a life where you are really just boots on the ground for those most in need. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Of course. What a wonderful reminder of how much we can achieve when we come together as a community. No matter our backgrounds, stay tuned. Our next guest will provide us with deeper insights into how volunteering changes lives. We'll be right back.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Welcome back. Our final guest for this segment is a vibrant personality. She is someone who's extremely passionate about the volunteer work she does with the Legal Aid Society. Joining us is Mara Shore, a legal aid volunteer advocate for children. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. So grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
So, volunteer advocate coordinator, boots on the ground. Tell us about that.
So it's volunteer advocate for children.
Tell me about that.
So volunteer advocate for children. I am honestly, gosh, what don't we do?
Okay.
We work very closely with legal aid.
Okay.
So as I'm sure the team has told you already, within Orange County, we need to be, in order to be a guardian ad litem, you do need to be a lawyer.
Okay.
Of which I always say I am not, right? I've never went to law school, I've never passed the bar, I am solidly not a lawyer. And so they created the program for volunteer advocate for children. With that, it allows you to be a part of what quite honestly is such a broken system in foster care, and allows you to advocate for the kids that really, really need it. So I've been doing this now since 2021.
Wow.
And would not have it any other way.
Now tell some of our viewers what led you to that. What gave you that insight? How did you find out about it?
So I always say one of my very, very best friends is heavily involved with the Legal Aid Society, Annie Rodriguez Newbarn. And after my brother had passed away, after many, many years of very heavy drug use, and my grandmother had passed away simply from being 95, right? So people say, of what? I'm like, of 95. But I had all of this knowledge of advocating for others and wanting to change systems, but honestly didn't realize how much knowledge I had. And I went to Annie and said, I want to do something with this. I want to do something to make a difference, but I don't know what this is. And she said, have you considered volunteering with Legal Aid? And I said, I don't have knowledge of the foster care system. I don't have children, so I don't know that I could actually do this. And she said, you know more than you think you know. And she said, just take some time, ask some questions of the coordinator, who is still the coordinator and is very familiar now with my questions. And she said, just talk to her, talk to Camilla. And then one thing led to another. I went through the certification process, and the more I learned, the more I realized that you can't unsee what you've learned. You can't unsee what you've learned about the system. You can't unsee what you learn about the issues that really intersect with some things that are going on in society and how it affects the kids. And so it became something that I am so incredibly passionate about.
Now, for some of our viewers, when you talk about, hey, I didn't think I had enough, and that's maybe what they may be thinking, to take that leap, what if they, want to just reach out to some of the people who are volunteers and talk with them? Is that a possibility?
Always. If you've ever met somebody that volunteers, whether they're a CASA, court-appointed special advocate, whether they are a GAO, which is a guardian ad litem, whether they're a VAC, volunteer advocate for children, right? Like this alphabet soup, but we will talk your ear off about our passion. So if you've ever met anybody, you know you've met them, because we will talk your ear off about its importance, right? The importance of the role and the importance of what is needed. So I think that reach out to somebody. I'm always happy to speak with people. It's changed, volunteering has changed my world. It's changed my life forever.
Now, some of our guests have talked about kind of that time commitment. You were there, you were boots on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Tell our viewers, is it hours, is it weeks, is it months? What kind of time commitment do you feel like you truly have to give to these cases?
It is hours plus days plus weeks plus months plus years, right?
Okay.
So it's all of the above, right? Everything that you just said. So where I find is that the majority of the commitments, as far as the hours, when it comes to any given week or any given month, can fit into the course of your day and what works best for you and what works best for the family that you're advocating for. And when I say family, there are typically you've got the kids that are part of that case plan and the family that they live with. Sometimes that is a relative, sometimes that is somebody that they hadn't previously known that's a licensed foster parent. But I always try to do my best to look at what works within their schedule when I do go into their homes and meet with the kids and meet with the families. But I've taken calls in the evenings, I've taken calls in the morning, I've been on I don't know how many Zoom calls. So court typically happens every few months. It could be every 3 months, it could be every 6 months. And technically, you aren't required to show up for court. There are lawyers that are able to do that. I have control issues myself, so I always like to go just to be another set of eyes and ears and think about whatever is said there that can also help me moving forward with the kids in that case. So I think that on any given week, it might be maybe a few hours a week, maybe it's a few hours a month. It also depends the stage that the kiddos are with their case.
Now, we heard from one of the guardian ad litems themselves about kind of the caseload, that there's so many children. I think the number she used was 1,100 approximately, and that number fluctuates. Do you feel any type of, you've done this now for 3 years, do you feel any type of burnout or overwhelming, or do you feel like you have the support you need with legal aid to really meet those kind of expectations?
So I think it's yes and no, right? So legal aid has always been amazing when it comes to providing support. And I think one of my big fears was when I say having before where I said, oh, I don't feel equipped, it's because I'm not a lawyer and I don't know the legal system when it comes to, as it's related to foster care, as it's related to kids in care, and just the parental rights and termination and just what goes into all of that. So for me, I very heavily rely on the legal team within legal aid to help answer those questions of what that looks like. So they are so incredibly important, and they're so just knowledgeable and brilliant at what they do. I think for me, it's never a matter of burnout. I do take time between cases to regroup and reconsider what it is that I'm feeling that I'm best called to do and how, like what sort of case I'm best called to take. For me personally, unfortunately, our family has had issues where, like I said, with my brother, where there was drug addiction. So for me, I am very familiar with what families go through when there is addiction deep in their family. And so for me, I will go to legal aid. I'll say to Camilla, I am most comfortable taking a case where there has been a history of addiction because it's what I know. And I feel it deeply. And so there's other people that are more comfortable taking a medical case. And so they're able to match you up with a case that makes sense for you, that you're comfortable with. Now, when I say comfortable, the topics are very uncomfortable to deal with. But when we say burnout, you can take a breather between cases, and then when you're ready, they always say, come back as soon as you're ready. And that's, I think, having a team that's so understanding makes all the difference.
You brought up 3 amazing points. One, so it's amazing to say that they can take breaks between. They're not taking cases back to back to back every day. They can say, hey, I just finished this 6-month stint. I need a little bit of reprieve.
Yeah.
So that's amazing for our viewers to know. Secondly, I love the idea that you get to have some feedback. I know for us as Guardian Ad Litems, we do get to say, oh, you know, I'm much more comfortable with little bitties, you know, or, you know, no, I want like a teenager, you know, like, and we can give them that feedback. So that's wonderful to know.
Yes.
I want to explore, just as my last question, you mentioned being able, that you had the trainings, you had these kind of support systems and resources from legal aid. What if I do take that break? Do you all get trained every year? Do you get trained every month? Like, what if I come back? Will I need to do a supplemental training? How does that work?
You don't have to continue to do trainings.
Okay.
So it's not that, it's not the same as licensure as with being a
There
foster
we go.
parent.
Okay.
So with foster parent licensure, there's continuing credits, and you have to continue to get licensed. We were level 1 foster parents as well. So for us, that was a little different. So obviously I'm familiar with both sides of it. One of the amazing teenagers that I advocated for actually came and lived with us. So she's here in the green room today. She's hanging out with me. So,
fun.
you know, now I always say that doesn't always happen. It doesn't happen most of the time, but you're able to say, this is what I'm more comfortable, this is what I'm less comfortable with. I love teenagers. It's a really great age, and you can make such a difference. So I think, though, keep in mind, you can, after you get your certification as a VAC, you can continue to get more training as you see fit, right? So, and they really make a great, they have this availability of saying, okay, if you need more help with mental health, you know, a mental health crisis for your kiddo, then you can get more training on that. Or if you want to watch a video and get more training when it comes to substance issues, things like that. So I think they're great about pointing you in the direction of resources that are what you need for your particular case at that time too.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing for the Orange County community.
Thank you.
That choice is not an easy one, and the fact that you continue to make it and have made it for 3 years is nothing short of amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
If you are interested in volunteering for the Legal Aid Society, visit their website at legalaidocba.org. Thank you to our viewers for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'm your host, Jessica Thomas, and this is the Domino Effect. Friendly.
A disproportionate number of Floridians don't have access to the justice system. That's why funding Florida Legal Aid exists to bridge this gap. Their mission is to increase access for the underprivileged by funding legal services, developing innovative tools and programs, supporting legal aid providers and the courts. Because of their efforts, they've been able to help veterans facing homelessness, children in the foster care system, men and women who've survived domestic violence, and securing benefits for our elderly and disabled. Doing good for the greatest in need, because everyone deserves access to justice.
For over 60 years, the Legal Aid Society has provided legal representation to clients on issues similar to those discussed in this episode. Our goal is to inform the community that when faced with legal troubles, you are, and should, receive high-quality legal representation and access to justice regardless of your income. If you're seeking assistance on a legal matter, don't hesitate to get in touch with the Legal Aid Society of the Orange County Bar Association by calling 407-841-8310. The Legal Aid Society is a nonprofit law firm that relies significantly on volunteerism and donations. To learn more about ways you can volunteer with legal aid, visit legalaidocba.org/volunteer. Thank you for watching The Domino Effect, and remember, perpetual goodness goes a long way. Until next time.